Hello, you guys. How are you all doing? Uh, Give me a sec. I'm gonna adjust the camera just a little bit so that you see me, and I guess you can see my cat just fine. You see him fine. You see him fine, right? So today, reading the Lord of the Rings. We're doing chapter 2 today because we already did chapter 1. You really gonna drink from my cup? That's my cup. No. You have your own cup. I gave you I gave you a cup to drink from. Ugh. Raven Martyr, how you doing? You doing good? Any new bosses that you beat? Guess the cat's he's not here anymore. He might be going. Yeah, I think he's just gonna be chilling over there. He does not want to join us today. It's unfortunate. I think I need these. I don't need these. Glad you're doing good. I did not comment, but I saw the videos you sent in the Discord. They were pretty cool. Like, I'm probably never gonna play Armored Core because it's not my jam, but it looked really awesome. So anyways, I do plan on reading in just a moment. I do want to see if I can convince my cat to come over, but cats do whatever they want. So he may or may not come over and actually join us. It's unfortunate. Give me just a second. Yeah, it looks like he doesn't want to come over. It's fine. It's fine. I'll put this up here just in case he does decide to join us. But if he doesn't, that's okay. So I do have some music playing in the background. Oh, you know what? That reminds me. I think I actually have like a... Not that one. Sort of. This might be it. Except this is not supposed to be a camera. The webcam. Stream something. Oh. I don't know what I just did, but... Give me a sec. I'm wondering if maybe some of these got all messed up. Because it looks like I had some stuff off to the side. And maybe I didn't build this all correctly. Hang on. I'm gonna move at least a few of these. So that it looks okay. Do. There. I feel like there was something else that was supposed to be there, but I don't know what. And then I got social media stuff up here, which, yep, there we go. Move that down here. There we go. You kind of can't see it. It looks a little bad, but okay, it's fine. It's fine. What I'm really trying to figure out is this box right here. Yeah, this is not what it's supposed to be. Give me Give me a second here. So we're gonna do, this is not properties? Properties. Automatic. Auto, no. Display. I don't think this is right. I don't think this is, what is this supposed to be? Projector. I'm not very good at this. So I'm trying to like edit this so that it actually shows you what I want it to show you, but I don't know how to do that. In properties. Desktop duplicate. Woman. I don't think any of those is it. Oh. Where's properties? Auto. No. No. Huh. Maybe I should do a new one. I'll delete. I could delete this. Delete it. And add a new source. We'll do not game. Display. And I'll call it something different. We'll call it Spotify. And then, not automatic. Oh, no, I guess it is automatic. Oh, shit. You guys can just see my Streamlab right now. Huh. And then there's my, my Discord. So, I'm not very good at this, so please forgive me for taking so long before we get to the reading. I am trying to only showcase, like, the music that is currently playing this thing right here. So this is, like, the Spotify. There. That's, like, the best I can do, I think. I don't think I can do any better than this. So this is what we got now. Now that we've done this, now I can get to reading. Hopefully. Yeah, I think something else was right here, and it got deleted. Okay. Best I can do. That is the best I can do. Okay. That was a bit more work than I expected. So what we're going to be doing now is I got to find chapter 2. Fortunately, I remember. Okay, here we are. Chapter 2, The Shadow of the Past, is what I will be reading today. So, give me this a little bit so that I can actually see what I'm reading. I actually wish there was like a better way for me to do this. But there's not. Like a better way for me to camera is what I mean. So that's easier for you guys to see me. But there's not. So anyway, let me get to the reading. The talk did not die down in 9 or even 99 days. The second disappearance of Mr. Bilbo Baggins was discussed in Hobbiton, and indeed all over the Shire, for a year and a day, and was remembered much longer than that. It became a fireside story for young hobbits, and eventually Mad Baggins, who used to vanish with a bang and a flash and reappear with bags of jewels and gold, became a favorite character of legend and lived on long after all the true events were forgotten. But in the meantime, the general opinion in the neighborhood was that Bilbo, who had always been rather cracked, had at last gone quite mad and had run off into the blue. There he had undoubtedly fallen into a pool or a river and come to a tragic end. But hardly to a tragic but hardly an untimely end. The blame was mostly laid on Gandalf. If only that dratted wizard will leave young Frodo alone, perhaps he'll settle down and grow some hobbit sense, they said. And to all appearance, the wizard did leave Frodo alone, and he did settle down, but the growth of hobbit sense was not very noticeable. Indeed, he at once began to carry on Bilbo's reputation for oddity. He refused to go into mourning, and the next year he gave a party in honor of Bilbo's 112th birthday, which he called a 100-weight feast. But that was short of the mark, for 20 guests were invited, and there were several meals at which it snowed food and rained drink, as hobbits say. Some people were rather shocked, but Frodo kept up the custom of giving Bilbo's birthday party year after year until they got used to it. He said that he did not think Bilbo was dead. When they asked, "Where is he then?" he shrugged his shoulders. He lived alone, as Bilbo had done, but he had a good many friends, especially among the younger hobbits, mostly descendants of the old Took, who had as children been fond of Bilbo and often in and out of Bag End. Falco Boffin and Fredegar Bolger were two of these, but his closest friends were Peregrine Took, usually called Pippin, and Merry Brandybuck. His real name was Meriadoc, but that was seldom remembered. Frodo went tramping all over the Shire with them, but more often he wandered by himself, and to the amazement of sensible folk, he was sometimes seen far from home walking in the hills and woods under the starlight. Merry and Pippin suspected that he visited the elves at times, as Bilbo had done. As time went on, people began to notice that Frodo also showed signs of good preservation. Outwardly, he retained the appearance of a robust and energetic hobbit just out of his tweens. Some folks have all the luck, they said, but it was not until Frodo approached the usually more sober age of 50 that they began to think it queer. Frodo himself, after the first shock, found that being his own master and the Mr. Baggins of Bag End was rather pleasant. For some years he was quite happy, and he did not worry much about the future. But, half unknown to himself, the regret that he had not gone with Bilbo was steadily growing. He found himself wondering at times, especially in the autumn, about the wild lands, and strange visions of mountains that he had never seen came into his dreams. He began to say to himself, "Perhaps I shall cross the river myself one day," to which the other half of his mind always replied, "Not yet." So it went on, until his 40s were running out, and his 50th birthday was drawing near. 50 was a number that he felt was somehow significant, or ominous. It was at any rate at that age that adventure had suddenly befallen Bilbo. Frodo began to feel restless, and the old paths seemed too well trodden. He looked at maps and wondered what lay beyond their edges. Maps made in the Shire showed mostly white spaces beyond its borders. He took to wandering further afield, and more often by himself, and Merry and his other friends watched him anxiously. Often he was seen walking and talking with the strange wayfarers that began at this time to appear in the Shire. There were rumors of strange things happening in the world outside, and as Gandalf had not at the time appeared or sent any messages for several years, Frodo gathered all the news he could. Elves, who seldom walked in the Shire, could now be seen passing westward through the woods in the evening, passing and not returning. But they were leaving Middle-earth and were no longer concerned with its troubles. There were, however, dwarves on the road in unusual numbers. The ancient east-west road ran through the Shire to its end at the Grey Havens, and dwarves had always used it on their way to their mines in the Blue Mountains. They were the hobbits' chief source of news from distant parts, if they wanted any. As a rule, dwarves said little, and hobbits asked no more. But now Frodo often met strange dwarves of far countries seeking refuge in the west. They were troubled, and some spoke in whispers of the enemy and of the land of Mordor. That name the hobbits only knew in legends of the dark past, like a shadow in the background of their memories. But it was ominous and disquieting. It seemed that the evil power in Mirkwood had been driven out by the White Council, only to reappear in greater strength in the old strongholds of Mordor. The Dark Tower had been rebuilt, it was said. From there the power was spreading far and wide, and away far east and south there were wars and growing fear. Orcs were multiplying again in the mountains. Trolls were abroad, no longer dull-witted, but cunning and armed with dreadful weapons. And there were murmured hints of creatures more terrible than all these. They had no name. Little of all this, of course, reached the ears of ordinary hobbits. But even the deafest and most stay-at-home began to hear queer tales, and those whose business took them to the borders saw strange things. The conversation in the Green Dragon at Bywater, one evening in the spring of Frodo's 50th year, showed that even in the comfortable heart of the Shire, rumors had been heard, though most hobbits still laughed at them. Sam Gamgee was sitting in one corner near the fire, and opposite him was Ted Sandyman, Miller's son, and there were various other rustic hobbits listening to their talk. "Queer things you do here these days, to be sure," said Sam. "Ah," said Ted, "you do if you listen. But I can hear fireside tales and children's stories at home, if I want to." "No doubt you can," reported Sam, "and I dare say there's more truth in them and some of them than you reckon. Who invented the stories, anyway? Take dragons, now." "No, thank ye," said Ted. "I won't. I heard tell of them when I was a youngster, but there's no call to believe in them now. There's only one dragon in Bywater, and that's green," he said, getting a general laugh. "All right," said Sam, laughing with the rest. "But what about these tree men? These giants, as you call them? They do say that one bigger than a tree was seen up away beyond the North Moors not long back." "Who's they?" "My cousin Hal, for one. He works for Mr. Boffin at Overhill, and goes up the North Farthing for the hunting. He saw one." "Says he did, perhaps. Your Hal's always been saying he's seen things, and maybe he sees things that ain't there. But this one was as big as an elm tree, and walking 7 yards to a stride, if it was an inch." "Then I bet it wasn't an inch. What he saw was an elm tree, as like as not." "But this one was walking, I tell you, and there ain't no elm tree on the North Moors." "Then Hal can't have seen one," said Ted. There was some laughing and clapping. The audience seemed to think that Ted had scored a point. "All the same," said Sam, "you can't deny that others, besides our half-vast, have seen queer folk crossing the Shire. Crossing it, mind you. There are more that are turned back at the borders. The Bounders have never been so busy before. And I've heard tell that elves are moving west. They say they are going to the harbors, out away beyond the White Towers." Sam waved his arm vaguely. Neither he nor any of them knew how far it was to the sea, past the old towers beyond the western borders of the Shire. It was an old tradition that away over there stood the Grey Havens, from which at times elven ships set sail, never to return. "They are sailing, sailing, sailing over the sea. They are going into the west and leaving us," said Sam, half chanting the words, shaking his head sadly and solemnly. But Ted laughed. "Well, that isn't anything new, if you believe the old tales. And I don't see what it matters to me or you. Let them sail. But I warrant you haven't seen them doing it, nor anyone else in the Shire." "Well, I don't know," said Sam thoughtfully. He believed he had once seen an elf in the woods, and still hoped to see more one day. Of all the legends that he had heard in his early years, such fragments of tales and half-remembered stories about the elves as the hobbits knew had always moved him the most deeply. There are some, even in these parts, as know the fair folk and get news of them, he said. There's Mr. Baggins now, that I work for. He told me that they were sailing, and he knows a bit about elves. And old Mr. Bilbo knew more. Many's the talk I had with him when I was a little lad. Oh, they're both cracked, said Ted. Leastways, old Bilbo is cracked, and Frodo's cracking. If that's where you get your news from, you'll never want for moonshine. Well, friends, I'm off. Your good health. He drained his mug and went out noisily. Sam sat silent and said no more. He had a good deal to think about. For one thing, there was a lot to do up in the Bag End garden, and he would have a busy day tomorrow, if the weather cleared. The grass was growing fast, but Sam had more on his mind than gardening. After a while he sighed and got up and went out. It was early April, and the sky was now clearing after heavy rain. The sun was down, and a cool, pale evening was quietly fading into the night. He walked home under the early stars, through Hobbiton and up the hill, whistling softly and thoughtfully. It was just at this time that Gandalf reappeared after his long absence. For 3 years after the party he had been away. Then he paid Frodo a brief visit, and after taking a good look at him, he went off again. During the next year or two, he had turned up fairly often, coming unexpectedly after dusk, and going off without warning before sunrise. He would not discuss his own business and journeys, and seemed chiefly interested in small news about Frodo's health and doings. Then suddenly his visits had ceased. It was over 9 years since Frodo had seen or heard of him, and he had begun to think the wizard would never return, and had given up all interest in hobbits. But that evening, as Sam was walking home and twilight was fading, there came the once familiar tap on the study window. Frodo welcomed his old friend with surprise and great delight. They looked hard at one another. "All well, eh?" said Gandalf. "You look the same as ever, Frodo." "So do you," replied Frodo, but secretly he thought that Gandalf looked older and more careworn. He pressed him for news of himself and of the wide world, and soon they were deep in talk, and they stayed up far into the night. The next morning, after a late breakfast, the wizard was sitting with Frodo by the open window of the study. A bright fire was on the hearth, but the sun was warm, and the wind was in the south. Everything looked fresh, and the new green of spring was shimmering in the fields and on the tips of the trees' fingers. Gandalf was thinking of a spring, nearly 80 years before, when Bilbo had run out of Bag End without a handkerchief. His hair was perhaps whiter than it had been then, and his beard and eyebrows were perhaps longer, and his face more lined with care, wisdom. But his eyes were as bright as ever, and he smoked and blew smoke rings with the same vigor and delight. He was smoking now in silence, for Frodo was sitting still, deep in thought. Even in the light of morning he felt the dark shadow of the tidings that Gandalf had brought. At last, he broke the silence. "Last night, you began to tell me strange things about my ring, Gandalf," he said, "and then you stopped, because you said that much matters were best left until daylight. Don't you think you had better finish now? You say the ring is dangerous, far more dangerous than I guess. In what way?" "In many ways," answered the wizard. "It is far more powerful than I ever dared to think at first. So powerful that in the end it would utterly overcome anyone of mortal race who possessed it. It would possess him. In Aragon, long ago many elven rings were made, magic rings as you call them, and they were of course of various kinds, some more potent and some less. The lesser rings were only essays in the craft before it was full grown, and to the elven smiths they were but trifles, yet still to my mind dangerous for mortals. The great rings, the rings of power, they were perilous. Mortal, Frodo, who keeps one of the great rings does not die. He does not grow or obtain more life. He merely continues until at every minute is a weariness. And if he often uses the ring to make himself invisible, fades. He becomes in the end invisible permanently and walks in the twilight under the eye of the dark power that rules the rings. Yes, sooner or later, if he is strong or well-meaning to begin with, but neither strength nor good purpose will last. Sooner or later, the dark power will devour him. How terrifying, said Frodo. There was another long pause. The sound of Sam Gamgee cutting the lawn came in from the garden. How long have you known this? Asked Frodo at length. And how much did Bilbo know? Bilbo knew no more than he told you, I am sure, said Gandalf. He would certainly never have passed on to you anything that he thought would be a danger, even though I promised to look after you. He thought the ring was very beautiful and very useful at need, and if anything was wrong or queer, it was himself. He said that it was growing on his mind, and he was always worrying about it, but he did not suspect that the ring itself was to blame, though he had found out that the thing needed looking after. It did not seem always of the same size or weight. It shrank or expanded in an odd way, and might suddenly slip off a finger where it had been tight. Yes, he warned me of that in his last letter, said Frodo. So I have always kept it on its chain. Very wise, said Gandalf. But as for his long life, Bilbo never connected it with the ring at all. He took all the credit for that to himself, and he was very proud of it. He was getting restless and uneasy. Thin and stretched, he said, a sign that the ring was getting control. How long have you known this? Asked Frodo again. Known, said Gandalf. I have known much that only the wise know, Frodo. But if you mean known about this ring, well, I still do not know, I'd say. There is a last test to make, but I no longer doubt my guess. When did I first begin to guess? He mused, searching back in memory. Let me see. It was in the year that the White Council drove the dark power from Mirkwood, just before the Battle of Five Armies, that Bilbo found his ring. A shadow fell on my heart then, though I did not know yet what I feared. I wondered often how Gollum came by a great ring, as plainly as it was. That at least was clear from the first. I heard Bilbo's strange story of how he had won it, and I could not believe it. When I at last got the truth out of him, I saw at once that he had been trying to put his claim to the ring beyond doubt, much like Gollum with his birthday present. Lies were too much alike for my comfort. Clearly, the ring had an unwholesome power that set to work on its keeper at once. It was the first real warning I had that all was not well. I told Bilbo often that such rings were better left unused, but he resented it, and soon got angry. There was little else that I could do. I could not take it from him without doing greater harm. I had no right to do so anyway. Only watch and wait. I might perhaps have consulted Saruman the White, but something always held me back. Who is he? Asked Frodo. I have never heard of him before. Maybe not, answered Gandalf. Hobbits are, or were, no concern of his. Yet he is great among the wise. He is the chief of my order and the head of the council. His knowledge is deep, but his pride has grown with it, and he takes ill any meddling. The lore of the elven rings, great and small, is his province. He has long studied it, seeking the lost secrets of their making. when the rings were debated in the council, that he would reveal to us of his ring lore told against my fears. So my doubts slept uneasily. Still I watched and I waited. It all seemed well with Bilbo. The years passed. Yes, they passed. They seemed not to touch him. He showed no signs of age. The shadow fell upon me again. I said to myself, after all, he comes of a long-lived family on his mother's side. There is time yet. Wait. I waited until that night when he left his house. He said and did things then that filled me with a fear that no words of Saruman could allay. I knew at last that something dark and deadly was at work, and I have spent most of the years since then in finding out the truth of it. There wasn't any permanent harm done, was there? Asked Frodo anxiously. He would get all right in time, wouldn't he? Be able to rest in peace, I mean? He felt better at once, said Gandalf. But there's only one power in this world that knows all about the rings and their effects. And as far as I know, there is no power in the world that knows all about hobbits. Among the wise, I am the only one that goes in for hobbit lore. An obscure branch of knowledge, but full of surprises. Soft as butter they can be, and yet sometimes as tough as old tree roots. I think it likely that some would resist the rings far longer than most of the wise would believe. I don't think you need to worry about Bilbo. Of course, he possessed the ring for many years, and used it, so it might take a long while for the influence to wear off, before it was safe for him to see it again, for instance. Otherwise, he might live on for years, quite happily, just stop as he was when he parted with it. Or he gave it up in the end of his own accord. An important point. No, I was not troubled about dear Bilbo anymore, once he had let the thing go. It is for you that I feel responsible. Ever since Bilbo left, I have been deeply concerned about you, and about all these charming, absurd, helpless hobbits. It would be a grievous blow to the world if the dark power overcame the Shire. If all your kind, jolly, stupid Bolgars, Hornblowers, Bolfins, Bracegirdles, and the rest, not to mention the ridiculous Bagginsons, became enslaved. Frodo shuddered. But why would we be? He asked. And why should he want such slaves? Tell you the truth, replied Gandalf. I believe that hitherto, mark you, he has entirely overlooked the existence of hobbits. You should be thankful. Your safety has passed. He does not need you. He has many more useful servants, but he won't forget you again. And hobbits as miserable slaves would please him far more than hobbits happy and free. There is such a thing as malice and revenge. Revenge? Said Frodo. Revenge for what? I still don't understand what all this has to do with Bilbo and myself, and our ring. It has everything to do with it, said Gandalf. You do not know the real peril yet, but you shall. I was not sure of it myself when I was last here. The time has come to speak. Give me the ring for a moment. Frodo took it from his breeches pocket, where it was clasped to a chain that hung from his belt. Oh, the known Dark Senate. Hello. No, I do not play D&D. I've actually... It's funny, I've never played a single game of D&D ever. I know that's probably a little odd, but it is true. I have not played. So I apologize for the late reply. I do not have my headset on, and that's where I get the notifications. Hello, Pixel Sama. How are you doing? Now, you know what? Maybe I should change that. First, we're gonna change this. Can you guys still hear the music? No music. Okay, give me a second here. Properties, projector, speakers, device. So I'm just changing the speaker in the hopes that you guys can hear it. Not gonna do webcam capture. You know, what if I do alert box? Properties. You guys really can't hear that music from Spotify? Huh. Interesting. Okay, so what if I do this? Unmute speaker. Undo, unmute. No, that's not what I want to do. What about now? Can you hear the music now at least? I'll change the song. Tamriel rebuilt. So it's louder now. Okay. Alright, so what I'm gonna do, adjust this very slightly. I'm trying to get like a good balance here. It's like I can't hear because I had it on my headset here. I could not hear any notifications, but if I change the notifications to my speakers, then I have to change everything. Unfortunately. So I changed it to my actual speakers on either side so I can hear the notifications, but then you guys could not hear the music. So I'm hoping to balance that out so that you can hear the music and still hear me talk. By the way, I don't know if you just joined, but we are actually reading the Lord of the Rings. Wait. There you go. Lord of the Rings. Where was I? Let me know if the music is too loud, and I will adjust it. Here we are. Ever since Bilbo, right? Here we are. Revenge. I still don't understand. Here we are. Frodo took it from his breeches pocket. It's not loud. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that, Pixel-sama. Frodo took it from his breeches pocket, where it was clasped to a chain that hung from his belt. He unfastened it and handed it slowly to the wizard. It felt suddenly very heavy, as if either it or Frodo himself was in some way reluctant for Gandalf to touch it. Gandalf held it up. It looked to be made of pure and solid gold. "Can you see any markings on it?" he asked. "No," said Frodo. "There are none. It is quite plain, and it never shows a scratch or sign of wear." "Well then, look." To Frodo's astonishment and distress, the The wizard threw it suddenly into the middle of a glowing corner of the fire. Frodo gave a cry and groped for the tongs, but Gandalf held him back. "Wait," he said, in a commanding voice, giving Frodo a quick look from under his bristling brow. No apparent change came over the ring. After a while, Gandalf got up close, closed the shutters outside the window, and drew the curtains. The room became dark and silent, though the clack of Sam's shears, now nearer to the windows, could still be heard faintly from the garden. For a moment, the wizard stood looking at the fire. Then he stooped and removed the ring to the hearth with the tongs, and at once picked it up. Frodo gasped. "'Tis quite cool," said Gandalf. "Take it." Frodo received it on his shrinking palm. It seemed to have become thicker and heavier than ever. "Hold it up," said Gandalf. "Look closely." As Frodo did so, he now saw fine lines, finer than the finest pen strokes, running along the ring, outside and inside, lines of fire that seemed to form the letters of a flowing script. They shone piercingly bright, and yet remote, as if out of a great depth. So I cannot read this at all, but I'll show you guys the script at least. Hang on. See here, they actually drew in the Elvish script for the One Ring. Right here. I do not know what that says. I could never read that, so I'm showing it to you guys instead. "I cannot read the fiery letters," said Frodo in a quavering voice. "Oh," said Gandalf, "I can. Letters are Elvish, of an ancient mode, but the language is that of Mordor, which I will not utter here. This in the common tongue is what it said. Close enough. One ring to rule them all. One ring to find them. One ring to bring them all, and in the darkness." It's only 2 lines of a verse long known in Elvish lore. 3 rings for the elven kings under the sky, 7 for the dwarf lords in their halls of stone, 9 for mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne, in the land of Mordor where shadows lie. 1 ring to rule them all, 1 ring to find them, 1 ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them, in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. He paused, and then said slowly in a deep voice, "This is the Master Ring, the 1 ring to rule them all. This is the 1 ring that he lost many ages ago, to the great weakening of his power. He greatly desires it. He must not get it." Frodo sat silent and motionless. Fear seems to stretch out a vast hand, like a dark cloud rising in the east and looming up to engulf him. "This ring," he stammered. How on earth did it come to me?" "Ah," said Gandalf, "that is a very long story. The beginnings lie back in the Black Years, which only the lore masters now remember. If I were to tell you all that tale, we should still be sitting here when spring had passed into winter. But last night I told you of Sauron the Great, the Dark Lord. The rumors that you have heard are true. He has indeed arisen again, left his hold in Mirkwood, returned to his ancient fastness in the dark tower of Mordor. The name even you hobbits have heard of. The shadow on the border of old stories. Always after a defeat and a respite, the shadow takes another shape, grows again." "I wish it not need have happened in my time," said Frodo. "So do I," said Gandalf. and so do all who live to see such times. That is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. Already, Frodo, our time is beginning to look black. The enemy is fast becoming very strong. His plans are far from ripe, I think, but they are ripening. We shall be hard put to it. We should be very hard put to it, even if it were not for this dreadful chance. The enemy still lacks one thing to give him strength and knowledge to beat down all resistance, break the last defenses, and cover all the lands in a second darkness. He lacks the one ring. The three, fairest of all, the elf lords hid from him. His hand never touched them or sullied them. 7 the dwarf's king possessed, but 3 he has recovered, and the others the dragons have consumed. 9 he gave to mortal men, proud and great, and so ensnared them. Long ago they fell under the dominion of the One, and they became ring-wraiths, shadows under his great shadow, his most terrible servants. Long ago, 'tis many a year since the 9 walked abroad, yet who knows? As the shadows grow once more, they too may walk again. But come, we will not speak of such things even in the morning of the Shire. So it is now, the 9 he has gathered to himself, the 7 also, or else they are destroyed. The 3 are hidden still, but that no longer troubles him. He only needs the 1, for he made that ring himself. It is his, and he let a great part of his own former power pass into it, so that he could rule all the others. If he recovers it, then he will command them all again, wherever they may be. Even the 3, and all that has been wrought with them will be laid bare, and he will be stronger than ever. And this is the dreadful chance, Frodo. He believes that the One had perished, that the elves had destroyed it, as should have been done. But he knows now it has not perished, that it has been found. So he is seeking it, and all his thought is bent on it. It is his great hope, our great fear.
Why? Why wasn't it destroyed? Cried Frodo. And how did the enemy ever come to lose it, if he was so strong and it was so precious to him? He clutched the ring in his hand as if he saw already dark fingers stretching out to seize it.
It was taken from him, said Gandalf. The strength of the elves to resist him was greater long ago, and not all men were estranged from them. The men of the Westerness came to their aid. That is a chapter of ancient history which it might be good to recall, for there was sorrow then too, gathering dark, but great valor and great deeds that were not wholly in vain. One day, perhaps I will tell you all the tale, or you shall hear it told in full by one who knows it best. But for the moment, since most of all you need to know how this thing came to you, and that will be a tale enough. This is all that I will say. It was Gil-galad, Elven King and Elendil of Westernesse, who overthrew Sauron, though they themselves perished in the deed, and Isildur Elendil's son cut the ring from Sauron's hand, took it for his own. Then Sauron was vanquished, and his spirit fled, was hidden for long years until his shadow took shape again in Mirkwood. But the ring was lost. It fell into the great river Anduin and vanished, for Isildur was marching north along the east banks of the river, and near the great Gladden fields he was waylaid by the orcs of the mountain, and almost all his folk were slain. He leapt
into the waters. The ring slipped from his finger as he swam, and then the orc saw him and killed him with arrows. Gandalf paused, and there in the dark pools amid the Gladden fields, he said, "The ring passed out of knowledge and legend, and even so much of its history is known now only to a few, and the council of the wise could discover no more. But at last I can carry on the story, I think. Long after, but still very long ago, there lived by the banks of the great river on the edge of the Winterland a clever-handed and quiet-footed little people. I guess they were of hobbit kind, akin to the fathers of the Stoors, for they loved the river and often swam in it or made little boats of reeds. There was among them a family of high repute, for it was large and wealthier than most, and it was ruled by a grandmother of the folk, stern and wise in old lore such as they had. The most inquisitive and curious-minded of that family was called Smeagol. He was interested in roots and beginnings. He dived into deep pools. He burrowed under trees and growing plants. He tunneled into green mounds, and he ceased to look up at the hilltops or the leaves on trees or the flowers opening in the air. His head and his eyes were downward. He had a friend called Deagle, of similar sort, sharper-eyed but not so quick and strong. On a time they took a boat and went down to the Gladden fields, where there were great beds of irises and flower reeds. There Smeagol got out and went nosing about the banks, but Deagle sat in the boat and fished. Suddenly a great fish took his hook, and before he knew where he was, he was dragged out and down into the water. Bottom. And he let go of his line, for he thought he saw something shining in the riverbed, and holding his breath, he grabbed at it. Then he came up, spluttering, with weeds in his hair and a handful of mud, and he swam to the bank. Behold, when he washed the mud away, there in his hand lay a beautiful golden ring, and it shone and glittered in the sun, so that his heart was glad. But Smeagol had been watching him from behind a tree, and as Deagle gloated over the ring, Smeagol came softly up behind him. "Give us that, Deagle, my love," said Smeagol, over his friend's shoulder. "Why?" said Deagle. "Because it's my birthday, my love, and I wants it," said Smeagol. "I don't care," said Deagle. "I have given you a present already, more than I could afford. I found this, and I'm going to keep it." "Oh, are you indeed, my love?" said Smeagol, and he caught Deagle by the throat and strangled him, because the gold looked so bright and beautiful. Then he put the ring on his finger. No one ever found out what had become of Deagle. He was murdered far from home. His body was cunningly hidden. But Smeagol returned alone, and he found that none of his family could see him when he was wearing the ring. He was very pleased with this discovery, and he concealed it, and he used it to find out secrets, and he put his knowledge to crooked and malicious uses. He became sharp-eyed and keen-eared for all that was hurtful. The ring had given him power according to his stature. It is not to be wondered at that he became very unpopular and was shunned, when visible, by all his relations. They kicked him, and he bit their feet. He took to thieving, and going about muttering to himself and gurgling in his throat. So they called him Gollum, and cursed him, and told him to go far away. And his grandmother, desiring peace, expelled him from the family, and he turned him out of her hole. He wandered in loneliness, weeping a little for the hardness of the world, and he journeyed up the river. He came to a stream that flowed down from the mountains, and he went that way. He caught fish in deep pools with invisible fingers and ate them raw. One day it was very hot, and as he was bending over a pool, he felt a burning on the back of his head, and a dazzling light from the water pained his wet eyes. He wondered at it, for he had almost forgotten about the sun. And for the last time he looked up and shook his fist at her. But as he lowered his eyes, he saw far ahead the tops of the misty mountains, out of which the stream came, and he thought suddenly, it would be cool and shady under those mountains. The sun could not watch me there. The roots of those mountains must be roots indeed. There must be great secrets buried there which have not been discovered since the beginning. So he journeyed by night up into the highlands, and he found a little cave of which the dark stream ran, and he wormed his way like a maggot into the heart of the hill and vanished out of all knowledge. The ring went into the shadows with him. Even the maker, when his power had begun to grow again, learned nothing of it.
Gollum! Cried Frodo. Gollum! Do you mean that this very Gollum creature that Bilbo met? How loathsome!
I think it is a sad story, said the wizard, and it might have happened to others, even to some hobbits that I have known.
I can't believe that Gollum was connected with hobbits, however distantly, said Frodo with some heat. What an abominable notion!
It is true all the same, replied Gandalf. About their origins, at any rate, I know more than hobbits do themselves. And even Bilbo's story suggests the kinship. There was a great deal with the background of their minds and memories that was very similar. They understood one another remarkably well, very much better than a hobbit would understand, say, a dwarf, or an orc, or even an elf. Think of the riddles they both knew, for one thing.
Yes, said Frodo. Though other folks besides hobbits ask riddles, and of much the same sort. And hobbits don't cheat. Gollum meant to cheat all the time. He was just trying to put poor Bilbo off his guard, and I dare say it amused his wickedness to start a game which might end in providing him with an easy victim. But if he lost, would not hurt him.
Only too true, I fear, said Gandalf. There was something else in it, I think, which you don't see yet. Even Gollum was not wholly ruined. He had proved tougher than even one of the wise would have guessed, as a hobbit might. There was a little corner of his mind that was still his own, and light came through it, as through a chink in the dark, light out of the past. It was actually pleasant, I think, to hear a kindly voice again, bringing up memories of wind, trees, and sun on the grass, and such forgotten things. That, of course, would only make the evil part of him angrier in the end, unless it could be conquered, unless it could be cured. Gandalf sighed. Alas, there is little hope of that for him, yet not no hope. No, not though he possessed the ring so long, almost as far back as he can remember, for it was long since he had worn it much. The black darkness it was seldom needed. Certainly he had never faded. He is thin and tough still. The thing was eating up his mind. The torment had become almost unbearable. All the great secrets under the mountain had turned out to be just empty night. There was nothing more to find out, nothing worth doing, only nasty, furtive eating and resentful remembering. He was altogether wretched. He hated the dark, and he hated light more. He hated everything, and the ring most of all.
What do you mean? Said Frodo. Surely the ring was his precious and the only thing he cared for. But if he hated it, why didn't he get rid of it, or go away and leave it?
You ought to begin to understand, Frodo, after all you have heard, said Gandalf. He hated it and loved it, as he hated and loved himself. He could not get rid of it. He had no will left in that matter. A ring of power looks after itself, Frodo. It may slip off treacherously, but its keeper never abandons it. At most, he plays with the idea of handing it on to someone else's care, and that's only at an early stage when it first begins to grip. But as far as I know, Bilbo alone in history has ever gone beyond playing and really done it. He needed all my help, too, and even so, he would never have just forsaken it or cast it aside. It was not Gollum, Frodo, but the ring itself that decided things. The ring left him. "What, just in time to meet Bilbo?" said Frodo. "Wouldn't an orc have suited it better?" "It is no laughing matter," said Gandalf. "Not for you. It was the strangest event in the whole history of the ring so far. Bilbo's arrival just at that time, and putting his hand on it, blindly in the dark. There was more than one power at work, Frodo. The ring was trying to get back to its master. It had slipped from Isildur's hand and betrayed him. Then, when a chance came, it caught poor Deagol. He was murdered. And after that, Gollum, and it had devoured him. It could make no further use of him. He was too small and mean. As long as it stayed with him, he would never leave his deep pool again. So now, when its master was awake once more, and sending out his dark thought from Mirkwood, it abandoned Gollum, only to be picked up by the most unlikely person imaginable, Bilbo from the Shire. Behind that, there was something else at work, something beyond any design of the Ringmaker. I can put it no plainer than by saying that Bilbo was meant to find the ring, and not by its maker, in which case you were also meant to have it. That may be an encouraging thought." "It is not," said Frodo, "though I am not sure that I understand you. But how have you learned all this about the ring? About Gollum? Do you really know it all, or are you just guessing still?" Gandalf looked at Frodo, and his eyes glinted. "I knew much, and I have learned much," he answered. "But I am not going to give an account of all my doings to you. The history of Elendil and Isildur and the One Ring is known to all the wise. Your ring is shown to be that one ring by the fire writing alone, apart from any other evidence." "And when did you discover that?" asked Frodo, interrupting. "Just now, in this room, of course," answered the wizard sharply. "But I expected to find it. I have come back from dark journeys and long search to make that final test. It is the last proof, and all is now only too clear. Making out Gollum's part and fitting it into the gap in the history required some thought. I may have started with guesses about Gollum, but I am not guessing now. I know. I have seen him." "You have seen Gollum!" exclaimed Frodo in amazement. "Yes, though the obvious thing to do, of course, if one could. I tried long ago, but I have managed it at last." "Then what happened after Bilbo escaped from him? Do you know that?" "Not so clearly. What I have told you is what Gollum was willing to tell, though not, of course, in the way I have reported it. Gollum is a liar, and you have to sift his words. For instance, he called the ring his birthday present, and he stuck to that. He said it came from his grandmother, who had lots of beautiful things of that kind. A ridiculous story. I have no doubt that Smeagol's grandmother was a matriarch, a great person in her way, but to talk of her possessing many elven rings was absurd, and as for giving them away, it was a lie, but a lie with a grain of truth. The murder of Deagol hunted Gollum, and he had made up a defense, repeating it to his precious over and over again, as he gnawed bones in the dark until he almost believed it. It was his birthday. Deagol ought to have given him the ring to him. It had obviously turned up just so as to be a present. It was his birthday present. And so on and on. I endured him as long as I could, but the truth was desperately important, and in the end I had to be harsh. I put the fear of fire on him, and wrung the true story out of him, bit by bit, together with much sniveling and snarling. He thought he was misunderstood and ill-used. When he had at last told me his story, as far as the end of the riddle game and Bilbo's escape, he would not say any more, except dark hints. Some other fear was on him greater than mine. He muttered that he was going to get his own back. People would see if he would stand being kicked and driven into a hole and then robbed. Olm had good friends now. Good friends and very strong. They would help him. Baggins would pay for it. That was his chief thought. He hated Bilbo and cursed his name. What is more, he knew where he came from. Cat's here. Hang on a sec, you guys. I'm going to take a quick break. That's a lot of talking. And we're going to see the cat. Wow. There he goes. This is his favorite place right here, is this little cat carrier. I use it a lot when we go out, because I pretty much take him everywhere with me.
We do need tea. You know what? I don't have any good tea. Haven't for a while. I used to have some really good green tea leaves. But I feel like since this is a British story, we'd need some good black tea. Alright. I'm just gonna take another sip of water and then I'll continue. Okay. Here we go. You know what? Uh-oh. Maybe this one will be a little better. Now I think you can see both of us a lot better like this. Let me just adjust this once again so that I can read. Can you guys still hear me just fine? Looks like mute. I don't. What does that mean? Use it, go through the... I don't know what that means. You'll have to forgive me. That, not very smart when it comes to technology. But how did he move? Okay, so when I moved, the music became louder. Loud but loud. I haven't changed anything, but maybe I can lower the volume on Spotify to make it a little softer. I want to move this so that it's not in my... But you can see my cat. We'll try it like this. The book on my lap. And move this a little like that. Trying to see how I look. I do. It's hard because I want you to see him. Nah, it's cool. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Right, here we go. But how did he find that out? Asked Frodo. As for the name, Bilbo very foolishly told Gollum himself. After that, it would not be difficult to discover his country, once Gollum came out. Oh yes, he came out. His longing for the ring proved stronger than his fear of the orcs, or even the light. After a year or two, he left the mountains. You see, though still bound by the desire of it, the ring was no longer devouring him. He began to revive a little, felt old, terribly old, yet less timid, and he was mortally hungry. Light of sun and moon, he still feared and hated, and he always will, I think. But he is cunning. He found he could hide from daylight and moonshine, and make his way swiftly and softly by dead of night with his pale, cold eyes, and catch small, frightened or unwary things. He grew stronger and bolder with new food and new air. he found his way into Mirkwood, as one would expect.
Is that where you found him? Asked Frodo.
I saw him there, answered Gandalf. But before that, he had wandered far, following Bilbo's trail. It was difficult to learn anything from him for certain, for his talk was constantly interrupted by curses and threats. What had it got in its pockets, he said. Oh, yep, you made it for the bedtime story, Odinator. Welcome. We're reading chapter 2 right now. I am a good bit in, though, so you might be a little lost. But if you know the story, then you should know where I am. You should be able to find out easily. It wouldn't say no. Say no, precious. Little cheat. Not a fair question. It cheated first, it did. It broke the rules. We ought to have squeezed it. Yes, precious. And we will, precious. There's a sample of his talk. I don't suppose you want any more. I had weary days of it. But from hints dropped among the snarls, I gathered that his padding feet had taken him to Esgaroth, and even to the streets of Dale, listening secretly and peering. Well, the news of the great events went far and wide in Winterland, and many had heard Bilbo's name and knew where he came from. We had made no secret of our return journey to his home in the west. Gollum's sharp ears would soon learn what he wanted.
Then why didn't he track Bilbo further? Asked Frodo. Why didn't he come to the Shire?
Ah, said Gandalf. Well, we come to it. I think Gollum tried to. He set out and came back westward, as far as the great river. Then he turned aside. He was not daunted by the distance, I am sure. Something else drew him away, so my friends think, those that hunted him for me.
Oops, sorry.
Sure I am where I was. There we are. The Wood Elves tracked him first. An easy task for them, for his trail was still fresh then. Through Mirkwood and back again, it led them, though they never caught him. The wood was full of the rumor of him, dreadful tales even among beasts and birds. The woodmen said there was some new terror abroad, a ghost that drank blood, climbed trees to find nests, it crept into holes to find the young, it slipped through windows to find cradles. But at the western edge of Mirkwood, the trail turned away. It was lost. It wandered off southward and passed out of the Wood Elves' ken and was lost. Then I made a great mistake. Yes, Frodo, and not the first. I fear it may prove the worst. I let the matter be. Let them go, for I had much else to think of at the time. I still trusted the lure of Saruman. I think that's a little. Years ago, paid for it dark and it was long cold again after Bilbo left here. My search would have been in vain. That I had from a friend, Aragorn, greatest traveler, huntsman of together, sought down the whole length of without hope, without success. At last, I had given up the chase and turned. Gollum was found. My friend returned. Great perils. Creature with. What he had been doing, he would say. He only wept. Many a Gollum wrote. When we pressed him, he cringed.
licking his fingers as it pained him, as if he remembered some old torture. Afraid there is no possible doubt. He had made his slow, sneaking way, step by step, mile by mile, south, down at last, land of Mordor. A heavy silence fell in the room. Frodo could hear his heartbeat beating, and outside, everything seemed still. No sound of Sam's shears could now be heard. You are correct. This thing has a very sensitive mute button, so if you press the tip over here, it mutes itself. Sometimes I feel like even when I don't press it, it mutes itself. Also, thank you for letting me know. It would have been super embarrassing, Pixel-sama, if I had been reading and nobody could hear me. Yes, to Mordor, said Gandalf. Alas, Mordor draws all wicked things, and the Dark Power was bending all its will to gather them there. Ring of the enemy would leave its mark too. Leave him open to the summons. All folk were whispering then of the new shadow in the south, its hatred of the west. There were his fine new friends who would help him his revenge. Wretched fool! In that land he would learn much, too much for his comfort. And sooner or later, as he lurked and pried on the borders, he would be caught, taken for examination. Was the way of it, here. When he was found, he had already been there long. Was on his way back. Some errand of mischief. That does not matter much now. The worst mischief was done. Yes, alas, through him the enemy has learned that the One has been found again. He knows where Isildur fell. He knows where Gollum found his ring. He knows that it is a great ring, for it gave long life. He knows that it is not one of the three. They have never been lost, and they endure no evil. He knows that it is not one of the 7 or the 9, for they are accounted for. He knows it is the one, and he has at last heard of hobbits in the Shire. The Shire. He may be seeking for it now, if he has not already found out where it lies. Indeed, Frodo, I fear that he may even think the long unnoticed name of Baggins become important. But this is terrible, cried Frodo. Far worse than the worst that I imagined from your hints and warnings. Oh, Gandalf, best of friends, what am I to do? For now I am really afraid. What am I to do? What a pity that Bilbo did not stab that vile creature when he had the chance. Pity. It was pity that stayed his hand. Pity and mercy. Not to strike, but need. And he had been well rewarded, Frodo. Be sure that he took so little hurt from the evil, escaped in the end, because he began his ownership of the ring so, with pity, I am sorry, said Frodo, but I am frightened, and I do not feel any pity for Gollum. You have not seen him, Gandalf broke in. No, and I don't want to, said Frodo. I can't understand you. Do you mean to say that you and the elves have let him live on after all those horrible deeds? Now, at any rate, he is as bad as an orc, and just an enemy. He deserves death. Deserves it? I dare say he does. Many that live deserve death, and some that die deserve life. Can you give it to them? Do not be so eager to deal out death and judgment, for even the very wise cannot see all ends. I have not much hope that Gollum can be cured before he dies, but there is a chance of it, and he is bound up with the fate of the ring. My heart tells me that he has some part to play yet, for good or ill, before the end. When that comes, pity of Bilbo may rule the fate of many, yours not least. In any case, we did not kill him. He is very old, very wretched. Wood elves have him in prison, but they treat him with such kindness as they can find in their wise hearts. All the same, Lord of the Rings does have very good writing, I think. Oh, Hutch DJ, thank you for the follow. Now, it does have very good writing. It's a bit olden, and the prose, I think, they're a bit heavy, but I do think it is very well written. I generally prefer breezier stories that are easier to read than this, but this is good. It is after all one of my old favorites. I used to read this religiously in middle school and high school. All the same, said Frodo, even if Bilbo could not kill Gollum, I wish he had not kept the ring. I wish he had never found it, and that I had not got it. Why did you let me keep it? Why didn't you make me throw it away, or destroy it? Let you? Make you? Said the wizard. Haven't you been listening to all that I have said? You are not thinking of what you are saying. As for throwing it away, that was obviously wrong. These rings have a way of being found. Evil hands, it might have done great evil. Worst of all, it might have fallen into the hands of the enemy. Indeed, it certainly would. This is the one, and he is exerting all his power to find it or draw it to himself. Of course, my dear Frodo, it was dangerous for you. That has troubled me deeply. There was so much at stake that I had to take some risk. Though even when I was far away, there has never been a day when the Shire has not been guarded by watchful eyes. As long as you never used it, I did not think that the ring would have any lasting effect on you. Not for evil, not at any rate for a very long time. And you must remember that 9 years ago, I saw you, I still knew little for certain. I don't think I've read that one. Ulyss. Nope, that's not a familiar one to me. But I'm assuming it's good if you're vouching for it. Why not destroy it? As you say should have been done long ago, cried Frodo again. If you had warned me, or even sent me a message, I would have done away with it. You? How would you do that? Have you ever tried? No, but I suppose one could hammer it or melt it. Try, Gandalf. Try now. Frodo drew the ring out of his pocket and looked at it again. It now appeared plain and smooth, without mark or device that he could see. The gold looked very fair and pure, and Frodo thought how rich and beautiful was its color, how perfect was its roundness. It was an admirable thing and altogether precious. When he took it out, he had intended to fling it from him into the very hottest part of the fire, but he found now that he could not do so, not without a great struggle. He weighed the ring in his hand, hesitating, and forcing himself to remember all that Gandalf had told him. Then, with an effort of will, he made a movement, as if to cast it away. He found that he had put it back in his pocket. Gandalf laughed grimly. See? Already, you too, Frodo, cannot easily let it go, nor will to damage it. I could not make you, except by force, which would break your mind. As for breaking the ring, force is useless. Even if you took it and struck it with a very heavy sledgehammer, it would make no dent in it. It cannot be unmade by your hands, by mine. Your small fire, of course, would not melt even ordinary gold. The ring has already passed through it unscathed, and even unheeded. But there is no smith's forge in this shire that could change it at all. Not even the anvils and furnaces of the dwarves could do that. As been said that dragon fire could melt and consume the rings of power, there is not now any dragon left on earth in which the old fire is hot enough. Or was there ever any dragon? Not even Ankalagan the Black, who could have harmed the One Ring, the ruling ring, for that was made by Sauron himself. So it's probably a much older story. Maybe I'll read that at some point. I think what I'm gonna do is if you give that a read, be sure to let me know how it is. I think what I'm gonna do. Oh, thank you for the follow, Pixel Summer. I think what I'll probably do is I'm gonna read this, Lord of the Rings, and I think I might begin to pick up some of my own stories and read them on Twitch. But we'll see. There is only one way. Find the cracks of doom in the depths of Orodruin. Far mountain, and cast the ring in there. If you really wish to whoopsies. Someone just called me. If you really wish to destroy it, put it beyond the grasp of the enemy forever. I do really wish to destroy it, cried Frodo. Or, well, to have it destroyed. I am not made for perilous quests. I wish I had never seen the ring. Why did it come to me? Why was I chosen? It would, though I would not be as good as many audiobooks are. I'm not the greatest reader. As you can see, I actually have a lot of trouble pronouncing some of the words in this. One of the reasons I'll probably never ever read a not Brandon Sanderson, but maybe like I don't know if any of you know R.A. Salvatore, who wrote The Legend of Drizzt Do'Urden. Lots of fantasy names that are almost impossible to pronounce. I am almost 100% certain that fantasy authors made these names simply to give narrators a hard time. He's asleep.
Such questions cannot be answered, said Gandalf. You may be sure that it was not for any merit that others do not possess, nor for power or wisdom. At any rate, you have been chosen, and you must therefore use such strength and heart and wits as you have. But I have so little of any of these things. You are wise and powerful. Do you not take the ring? No, cried Gandalf, springing to his feet. With that power I should have power too great and terrible, and over me the ring would gain a power still greater and more deadly. His eyes flashed, and his face was lit as by fire within. Do not tempt me, for I do not wish to become the Dark Lord himself. Yet the ring has a way to my heart is by Yet the ring has a way to my heart by pity, for weakness and the desire of strength to do good. Do not tempt me. I dare not take it, but even to keep it safe, unused, the wish to wield it would be too great for my strength. I shall have such need of it. Great perils lie before me. He went to the window, drew aside the curtain and shutters. Sunlight streamed back into the room. Sam passed along the path, outside whistling. Now, said the wizard, turning back, Frodo, decision lies with you. Will always help you. Laid his hand on Frodo's shoulder. I will help you bear this burden, because it is yours to bear. Let's do something soon. Enemy is moving. There was a long silence. Gandalf sat down again and puffed at his pipe as if lost in thought. His eyes seemed closed, but under the lids he was watching Frodo intently. Frodo gazed fixedly at the red embers on the hearth till they filled all his vision, and he seemed to be looking down into profound wells of fire. He was thinking of the fabled cracks of doom, the terror of the fiery mountain. Well, said Gandalf at last, what are you thinking about? Have you decided what to do? No, answered Frodo, coming back to himself out of darkness, and finding to his surprise that it was not dark, and that out of the window he could see the sunlit garden. Or perhaps yes. As far as I understand what you have said, I suppose I must keep the ring and guard it, at least for the present, whatever it may do to me. Whatever it may do, it will be slow to evil, if you keep it with that purpose, said Frodo. Hope so, said Frodo. But I hope that you may find some other better keeper soon. But in the meanwhile, it seems that I am in danger, a danger that to all that live near me. I cannot keep the ring and stay here. I ought to leave Bag End, Shire, leave everything and go away. He sighed. I should like to save the Shire if I could, but there have been times when I thought the inhabitants too stupid and dull for words, and have felt that an earthquake or an invasion of dragons might be good for them. I don't feel like that now. I feel that as long as the Shire lies behind, safe and comfortable, I shall find wandering more bearable. I shall know that somewhere there is a firm foothold, even if my feet cannot stand there again. Of course, I have sometimes thought of going away. I imagine that as a kind of holiday, a series of adventures like Bilbo's are better, ending in peace. This would mean exile, a flight from danger into danger, drawing it after me. And I suppose I must go alone, if I am to do that and save the Shire. I feel very small, very uprooted, and, well, desperate. The enemy is so strong and terrible. He did not tell Gandalf. As he was speaking, a great desire to follow Bilbo flamed up in his heart. Follow Bilbo, and even perhaps to find him again. It was so strong that it overcame his fear. could almost have run out there and then down the road without his hat, as Bilbo had done on a similar morning long ago. "My dear Frodo," exclaimed Gandalf, "hobbits really are amazing creatures. As I have said before, you can learn all that there is to know about their ways in a month, yet after 100 years they can still surprise you at a pinch. I hardly expected to get such an answer, not even from you. But Bilbo made no mistake in choosing his heir, though he thought little of how important it would prove. I'm afraid you are right. The ring will not be able to stay hidden in the Shire much longer. For your own sake, as well as for others, you will have to go. Leave the name of Baggins behind you. It will not be safe to have outside the Shire or in the wild. I'll give you a traveling name now. When you go as Mr. Underhill. I don't think you need go alone. Not if you know of anyone you can trust, and who would be willing to go by your side, that you would be willing to take into unknown perils. If you look for a companion, be careful in choosing. Be careful of what you say, even to your closest friends. The enemy has many spies, many ways of hearing." Suddenly he stopped as if listening. Frodo became aware that all was very quiet, inside and outside. Gandalf crept to one side of the window. Then with a dart he sprang to the sill and thrust a long arm out and downwards. There was a squawk, and up came Sam Gamgee's curly head, hauled by one ear. "Well, well, bless my beard," said Gandalf. "Sam Gamgee, is it? Now what may you be doing?" "Lord bless you, Mr. Gandalf, sir," said Frodo. Said Sam. Frodo said Sam. "Nothing. Leastways, I was just trimming the grass border on the window, if you follow me." He picked up his shears and exhibited them as evidence. "I don't," said Gandalf grimly. "It is some time since I had last heard the sound of your shears. How long have you been eavesdropping?" "Eavesdropping, sir? I don't follow you, begging your pardon. There ain't no eaves at Bag End, and that's a fact." "Don't be a fool. What have you heard, and why did you listen?" Gandalf's eyes flashed, and his brows stuck out like bristles. "Mr. Frodo, sir!" cried Sam, quaking. "Don't let him hurt me, sir. Don't let him turn me into anything unnatural. My old dad would take on so. I meant no harm, on my honor, sir." "He won't hurt you," said Frodo, hardly able to keep from laughing, although he was himself startled and rather puzzled. "He knows, as well as I do, that you mean no harm. Just you up and answer his questions straight away." "Well, sir," said Sam, dithering a little, "I heard a deal that I didn't rightly understand. About an enemy, and rings, and Mr. Bilbo, sir, and dragons, and a fiery mountain, and elves, sir. I listened because I couldn't help myself, if you know what I mean. Lord bless me, sir, but I do love tales of that sort. And I believe them, too, whatever Ted may say. Elves, sir, I would dearly love to see them. Didn't you take me to see elves, sir, when you go?" Suddenly Gandalf laughed. "Come inside," he shouted, and putting out both his arms, he lifted the astonished Sam, shears, grass clippings, and all, right through the window, and stood him on the floor. "Take you to see the elves, eh?" he said, eyeing Sam closely, with a smile flickering on his face. "Heard that Mr. Frodo is going away?" "I did, sir. That's why I choked, which you heard seemingly. I tried not to, sir, but it burst out of me. I was so upset." "Can't be helped, Sam," said Frodo sadly. He had suddenly realized that flying from the Shire would mean more painful partings than merely saying farewell to the familiar comforts of Bag End. "I shall have to go, but—" and here he looked hard at Sam. "You really care about me. You will keep that dead secret. See? If you don't, even breathe a word of what you've heard here, I hope Gandalf will turn you into a spotted toad and fill the garden full of grass snakes. Sam fell on his knees, trembling. Get up, Sam, said Gandalf. I have thought of something better than that. Something to shut your mouth and punish you properly for listening. You shall go away with Mr. Frodo. Me, sir? Cried Sam, springing up like a dog invited for a walk. Me go and see the elves and all? Hooray! He shouted, and then burst into tears. Oh, long chapter. So that was the end of chapter 2. After that will be chapter 3, The Company. Oh, and we're not going to read that right now. I think that was definitely the most I'm going to do in a day. It's a lot of reading. These are long chapters. Hope you guys enjoyed it at least a little. I don't consider myself a particularly skilled reader or orator. Especially when it comes to talking out loud. I've never been very good at that. Hey, you! Thank you, Pixel-sama. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It's a lot of reading. Usually, I would do a bit more stuff. I don't know what else I can do right now. It's getting to be a little late. I'm probably gonna start on lunch at some point. So I'm not lunch, sorry. Dinner. God, I'm so tired. Reading like that takes a lot out of you. I am probably gonna stop. Look at this guy. He is done. But yes, I am probably going to stop the stream now. Usually my streams are about 3 hours, but the reading streams are shorter because honestly it just takes a lot more out of you to read than it does to play video games. Though I do read a lot when I play Snowbreak. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will likely do this again next Wednesday. So if you are here just for the bedtime story, then feel free to pop in next Wednesday, and I will happily read you more bedtime stories. We will be doing chapter 3 of The Lord of the Rings, and we'll likely continue on until I at least complete the Fellowship of the Ring. I don't know what I'll do after that. I think I'll likely continue it. We may move on to another story. It will really depend on how I feel, I guess. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me and listening to me read. I hope you all have a great day or a good night, depending on where you are living right now. I'll see you guys later. For sure. Or Odinator, see you next time. Have a good one.